afternoon, everyone. I call the March SMAC meeting to order. We have one excused absent, Ian. So may I have a motion, to accept his absence? Okay, Samantha, David, all in favor? No oppositions. Okay. You have the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any corrections or updates? May I have a motion that the minutes be received? Okay, Josh, second, Glenn, all in favor? Any opposition? Okay. Do we have anyone sign up for public comment? Okay. The work plan is a part of the packet of the agenda, so you can see noted how the work plan is a part of each agenda item. So thanks to Scott and Wayne for including that. I now invite Nicola to take us through the Planning Commission SMAC liaison and also the document.
Yeah, sure. And we have one kind of general update, but I think the main one we want to really focus on here was the Strickland rezoning proposal. We've kind of drafted, I think, this maybe the last one or at least the last time. I think the kind of conclusion and kind of discussion that came out of that was that kind of led by Samantha and her hard work, also in collaboration with the stormwater staff and others, being able to kind of maybe have formal comments that kind of be able to share with the planning commission. I think that's kind of the role of this, is to make sure that us, the team, and us as a group here can really share our comments and kind of our perspective on this. So they can have something a little bit more tangible to help kind of inform potentially their decision. And so with that, again, compliments to Samantha for all of her hard work in developing this one. And so I guess what I want to first do is, kind of reorient us to watching forward to that one. Sorry to just jump over. Thank you.
I had it first.
So this is the site plan again. We presented it the last meeting. It wasn't included in this one, but it's had one of the modifications that we kind of plan to add here. So I think where this goes, and I'll look for Ben for a few more questions.
These are the updated conditions. Sorry.
Fabulous. Yeah.
All right.
Where this kind of goes after this is kind of the plan for this discussion potentially is for Samantha to kind of lead us through some of those concerns, kind of some of the highlights of that, and then kind of shift to more of an open discussion if anyone has any comments, or to really kind of hone in on any of these edits. From there, if we want to do a motion to approve and kind of move forward, and if that's the case, where this would go from there is the planning commission would receive the information, and then it would be their kind of choice or their kind of group on how they would like to incorporate that in the final delivery. So I just want to kind of lay out the process before kind of diving into any of that. And then kindly put all this information together, but there has been a few changes as shown here. If you want to walk through those, and I'll pass it then to Samantha.
So with the zoning conditions, the applicant has changed their conditions a little bit. And so they're controlling the rate of runoff, leaving the site for the 25-year storm, up to the 25-year storm. And that's been on the case pretty much since they went to planning commission. They added before the last meeting, the whole meeting, which was in the end of February, increased nutrient treatment for their devices. Currently, right now, for Falls Lake watershed, you have to treat for nitrogen and phosphorus. You have to treat to nitrogen to 3.2 and phosphorus to 0.33, and they committed to treating to 2.0 and to 0.30. So basically 10% lower than what is in the UDO. And then after the last committee, the whole meeting, they sent unsigned conditions, I will say, just FYI, but unsigned conditions to the planning department to add another condition to lower their maximum impervious for this site to 28.5, which the code would allow 30% to be. And that ordinance, which is in the memo, about 10,000 square feet of impervious less than will be allowed. And so size on there, I apologize. I believe it's like a 16-acre site.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the update I have. And the planning commission did not meet at their last official meeting, which was last week, because they did not have enough members to meet quorum. They're hoping they will on March 12th. And we met with County Commissioner Otwell yesterday to talk about this case specifically. And, they would really appreciate representation from the commission to come and discuss it at the planning commission meeting, which is March 12th at 9 a.m. So it may actually be, I don't know if we ever decided on delaying it because Commissioner Otwell is not going to be able to be there right at 9 a.m. There was some talk that it wouldn't be held till 10 o'clock, which is not for anything short of that. But these are the most up-to-date conditions.
Yeah, so, yeah, we can leave that up. Go ahead.
If I might, on the map then, I've heard a question came up about the adjacent shopping plaza and how much of the runoff from the adjacent shopping plaza was going through the rezoning property versus going the other direction. Could you just kind of clarify that on the map?
Shouldn't be any of the adjacent shopping plazas coming over because all their drainage system is pointing to across Strickland Road and going down this way. There could be some incidental along the edges of these, not surface road, but you know, the road behind a shopping center. But all their drainage structures are draining across Strickland to a treatment device here, which is down there. There was an old, at the last committee, the whole meeting, the planning commission was brought up, there was an old agreement between this property and this property, and they were gonna do detention on this property for the shopping center, but that apparently fell through because they're not detaining anything on here. There are, looks like, old ponds here, and I know, Commissioner Crop has got some pictures of that too, but there's nothing that we're regulating that they're taking their drainage here now. But a lot of neighbors looked up and found this old like recorded contract between the two properties, which maybe too much information, but this whole area was all owned by the same property owner at one time. And so there were a lot of different contracts made between the properties, but it was the same owner. Best I can tell with the city attorney's office is they just decided not to act on this and do their detention here, decided to, it looks like they just basically regraded it when it was in the county and basically regraded it to outside Falls Lake and then got annexed into the city after that. Happy to answer your questions, because I know that wasn't the best, easiest synopsis that it would be like.
I guess two questions, I guess. Can you explain the idea of unsigned conditions and then what that means? And then Samantha, this was written with those new conditions in consideration? Okay.
So, and I actually never heard this until yesterday, which is something. So they can only add conditions to a case of planning commission once. And they already did this condition. After that, it has to be added by the city council. So that's why officially the planning commission, if they were to take action on this case, they would say, these are the conditions we heard that were brought forward, and we would recommend this other condition as well that the applicant has offered. But they can't be signed as part of the official case, because apparently at the planning commission stage, you can only change your case once by adding conditions. Which, like I said, first time I heard that until yesterday, so.
And just to clarify, and I appreciate you going through that, because I think I lost in that context yesterday. I knew there was one,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they actually had the opportunity later on. So would it be possible, so they can add that one potentially later on to the, for city council?
Correct.
If there are others after kind of reviewing this and discussion, would they be able to also add additional ones at the city council?
They could.
Okay, I just wanted to, for the point of this discussion, is there a point? So it turns out.
So, yeah, basically, based on what I heard yesterday, and Wayne can correct me if I'm wrong too, but the city council can add conditions all throughout the way. It's not restricted to one bite of the apple, as a planning called it, but the planning commission only has one bite of the apple.
What are the green stormwater, sorry, impact, what are the green stormwater proposals? As conditions, are there any beyond what we're seeing?
No, this is just, these are the conditions, yeah. That have been offered, but
Yeah, correct.
And is that nutrient treatment, is that a green stormwater infrastructure proposal, or is that the on-site nutrient treatment? What's the method?
so in order to get above 24% impervious, they would have to use a green stormwater infrastructure device. So if they hit their maximum, yes, but if they were to stay under 24%, theoretically, it wouldn't have to be green stormwater infrastructure unless there's a condition written that says any impervious added with stormwater.
So I think it's Smith wants to highlight some of those, just the kind of 6 main concerns on there. We just do a highlight and then, hopefully that ends the discussion, that we can have talk through if there's any kind of iterations or changes that we'd want to kind of highlight to the concerns, add context to it, whatnot, and then the recommendations. But I'll have it to Samantha. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy to just kind of walk through some of the key points. I put together some categories that talk specifically about water quantity, so flooding, stormwater, runoff, stormwater volume, and then the other pieces are about water quality. Obviously, that's important too, being in the secondary watershed protection area. And then basically just the recommendations piece was in large part adapted from the presentation that we received from Stormwater a while ago about conditions that, the city stormwater department would like to see added on to rezoning proposals. And so that was in large part from that. But I'll just kind of walk through the main stormwater concern issues. And this was from walking the site a couple times with city council members and one planning commission member, and then conversations with neighbors, and then of course conversations with city stormwater staff to gain an understanding of conditions offered. So the first one just kind of addresses the comprehensive plan, which I think is always important to keep at the forefront. The vision for the secondary watershed protection area in the comprehensive plan is to keep the area natural. And it specifically says no new residential zoning or land uses should be allowed at more than 1 home per acre unless conservation development standards are met, in which case it's 4 units per acre. So at a R4 current status, that's the 4 units per acre. So rezoning to R10 would be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. So that's kind of point number 1. And of course, that's the vision for what this area, what Raleigh wants this area to be serving. Number 2 was dealing with the streams. There is one perennial stream at the southern end of the property that is mapped. And that would, according to the EVO, require an 100-foot buffer given their current impervious. But there is also another stream that is, yeah, exactly. You can see it on the topographical, but it actually cuts down, you can see through the center exactly if you follow that topo line. And that is there. It's an intermittent stream. It doesn't show up on the project map, and I've suggested later in the recommendations that that should get a buffer as well. That stream actually, when it floods, it cuts across to the east and actually floods over Springdale Drive. And some of the neighbors have shared footage of that flooding happening with significant rain events. So just noting that those two are headwater streams, and obviously there's, water quality considerations for headwater streams, especially in drinking watersheds. The third point gets at this, sort of like discrepancy between the reality of what's happening with stormwater drainage and the, de jure, what's, regulatory on paper supposed to be happening. As Ben just shared, it's not supposed to be the case that the mall is draining into this parcel, but the fact is that it is. If you walk the parcel, it's very obvious. You can see where that drainage pattern is happening. It's coming off of the impervious there, and it's following that intermittent stream pattern. And there are 3, what look to me like they absolutely must have been constructed old stormwater basins that are still functioning. So those are on the property. So that point just kind of recognizes that, de facto, that's the situation. And the developer should, recognize that that's the case on the land if they're gonna, make a plan to affect that stormwater conveyance system. The fourth piece just addresses the topography, as, anyone can tell from the map here, but also just visiting the site. It's very obvious that it is steep slope areas, and that comes with its own issues, like the potential for needing to do things like blasting, grading, which comes with sediment and erosion control considerations, especially again, these headwater streams, which are sensitive. And then the last 2 are just kind of more general. The second to last deals with just the reality of climate change. There's so much work being done on precipitation modeling and flood prevention in the city, which is a leader, nationally on that work. So just recognizing our positionality as climate leaders, and that we need to be thinking about, not just the 25-year storm at this point in sensitive watershed areas. We need to be thinking beyond that. And the last point deals with precedent, which I think we've all talked about, which is just that, whatever happens in this watershed certainly sets a precedent for what future things could happen. And so we want to be thoughtful about, the precedent that we're setting for the future. Should I pause there before going into recommendations, or do you wanna keep going?
Yeah, I think when reading that, maybe just take a pause. I know, appreciate you summarizing all those and kind of consolidating them. As far as the kind of context they put in there, are there any other bullets that we want to add for concerns? Or is there any kind of within each one of those kind of statements or bullet points there? Is there any more context you want to add? Examples. I think it was really well written and I appreciate the work. Just wanted to see if there's any other components that you want to add to our experience.
Well, a few comments, I guess. It's not a adjacent mall to retail center. I think just, let's just, I mean, we don't have this. I mean, let's just clean up some of the language. But I do think if we have something that documents that or some type of less, if we have a diagram, that diagram the commission's gonna see shows it flows this way. Your field work shows it goes that way. Yeah. But I just don't, I don't know, I mean, you get into well, I haven't been to the site, why would it be going that way? What's the reason for it? Is that entity not maintaining their stormwater system correctly? Therefore, it's flooding this other property. Are they purposely draining to that property? Is there a default situation? So I just want to get into a little bit of the cause from another neighbor and how do we put that out there, I guess? How do we put that in the language? And I guess I believe it could strengthen the board, what about resiliency and water quality by tying it to the comp plan or the strategic plan. So if we were to go down that road and say, this matters, we can say, well, the city said this matters in the comp plan, strategic plan, item number 17.2533. There's a way to add some weight to that.
I think too, those are all great thoughts, in my opinion. I think to your point about the sort of like he said, she said drainage, it's so tricky. Try to address that with the photos at the back showing those stormwater conveyance systems. I think certainly we could ask the neighbors if they have video footage of the flow pattern. I know that they do have images of the stormwater drainage, flowing over Stony or Springdale Drive. But I think, I'm interested in hearing from the city. Springdale, yeah, that one, exactly. But I am interested in hearing, what sort of situation historically could have led to, there being drainage on site without that being permitted. But yeah, it's tricky.
Site's pretty close to 100% purpose now, shopping mall. I mean, it's not 100%, but
I imagine the whole set of the base.
yeah,
If it was draining that way,
Well-
right?
like I said, could be, but I'm not sure if this stuff here where there's not drain structures is somehow overflowing and getting out of the back area, because I'm not sure if it's curved back here or not. Maybe if you drew back there. If it's curved, then it would have to be a lot of rain to kind of jump over there, but it's just ribbon paved back here. An issue that's getting out
Yeah.
of that impervious. But it is noticeable that there's no drain structures in this area here. There's a hole pretty close together. That's the way.
Or potentially a maintenance issue of those.
Correct. It could be clogged. This could be clogged up too.
Clogged.
Yeah.
And it may be that we don't need to state all of it and explain all of it, but we may just want to soften our language a little bit about there is this. Eyewitnesses have noticed this. I got a little bit. Just trying to figure out how we can us go forward.
Let's take us to the recommendations, Samantha.
And like I said, these are pretty much taken from the city's, recommendations that were presented to us a few meetings ago, but try to be a little more site specific. So did in this case ask for a site plan, just given the complexity of the on-site stormwater scenario, that it would make sense probably to see a site plan for where development is planned to avoid the topographical challenges in that stormwater scenario and also that unmapped stream. Recommended a larger riparian buffer than the baseline. That's just kind of one of the standard recommendations, but putting a buffer on the unmapped stream and then a larger buffer on the mapped stream. Strengthen sediment and erosion control measures, those could look like a lot of things, but I suggested, double silt fencing, sediment bags and filters. One thing that I've seen sites exploring more recently is turbidity sampling of dewatering effluent. That's just a way to prevent dirty water from being pumped out of sediment basins. Commitments on green stormwater infrastructure beyond what's committed currently, which is just the 10% nutrient reduction from what they are required to do by the UDO. Commitment to no blasting or mass grading. That's another water quality piece. And then managing not just the 25-year storm, but looking at, again, the, feature of more precipitation on the landscape. So 50 and 100-year storm, which we are seeing some developers do more and more. But again, very interested in, folks' thoughts on these recommendations, if they're sufficient, if they don't go far enough, if they go too far.
Is there a scoring method, or has anybody scored that stream in the middle or buffer? Whether it's in the demo rating?
I don't know. I'm not sure if they've had, like a stream delineation on site from DWR or anything like
I haven't
that.
seen it there.
Yeah, so that could be a good recommendation, is to have a stream delineation.
We have to do that for that search.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it
That's,
That may be
Yeah,
after
we had to
3
hear about what's there.
yeah,
I'm more worried about the intermittent, the fact of, without us being out there, we wouldn't know it was there, so. I
right.
think a condition on there requiring the stream evaluation of that area would probably be definitely worthy, because that's not something city staff would automatically default to.
Yeah, exactly. So is there a way to, we had talked about it, adding at least a 50-foot buffer on the map. We could, another way to put that would be to require that we requested streams at least scored, and it stays in that framework.
But if it is intermittent, you would need to make a condition saying you want a buffer on the intermittent stream.
If we want, yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3, strengthen sediment erosion. I think if we want to be a little more specific would be helpful. And you could reference the state standard, which is the design sensitive watersheds. So,
Yeah.
That were used as a,
Yeah.
follow the state's requirements for design sensitive watersheds.
No, that's good.
The big thing about that is it eliminates max clearing on
Right.
ground.
Yeah.
Like 20 acres is.
So
like
that, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So man, thank you for all your work on this. We received it via prior to the meeting, and yet this is the first time we are together to look at this in person. What is the mood of the commission? Do we accept this conceptually? The idea that we're putting together a letter to go to planning commission. Is there any opposition to that conception? Put it at your face.
I don't think it's opposition to it. I think the thing that bothers me is the precedent of this.
Of doing this? Okay.
In that going forward, the next developer's gonna say, well, let happen here, why can't it? Could we do something where we recommend, we're not in favor of this, number 1. Okay, however, if you do vote to move forward, these are the things, and I'm not speaking for everyone.
Got it.
I think that's my reservation. It's just, we want to speak for stormwater, we want to speak for water quality, stormwater management. That's our mission. But boy, does this take us down a place, and I just want to make sure we know where we're going at the end of this, because we're in places we may not want to be 3 years from now in every resign case, or people coming here to plead a case, or we've inserted ourselves into a thing because we believe the stormwater water quality matters here, and we just wanted to make sure we stay on those rails. And how do we do that in the cleanest way possible?
Okay.
So I think that we could do that if we tighten this up maybe a little bit. I don't know. But I think it's the right thing, but man, we don't want to be political in this. We're really that. Maybe we do. I don't know. It's becoming a thing.
So you think this is the wrong vehicle, i.e. the letter?
I don't know. I think if there's a way to, I'm just trying to figure out how we do it. There's a lot here, and it's a great letter. But I'm a little worried about people coming back to us later. Rezoning doesn't happen on this property and or someone else wants a rezoning on another property. Then we start to become, we start to pick this letter apart of it or our goal. So I'm trying to figure out how to streamline. If we want to put recommendations forward, I don't know the right answer, but as Josh noted, put a few recommendations. We believe because of X, Y, and Z, there are water quality concerns. These are some recommendations we'd ask you to consider. Just speak for stormwater, just let it kind of be some.
Okay.
You know, trying to,
What are some other, I mean,
less
you
of
propose
more
this?
facts.
I agree that it is the right thing to do, that we need to do something. It's gonna be messy, dangerous. I'm curious about Wayne's thoughts on 3 years from now, if we do. All agree.
To my knowledge, this is the first time SMAC has ever weighed in specifically on not on a rezoning case. I don't think there's a precedent for having done this. Now, when the liaison position was created, the liaison between SMAC and another liaison that's on the planning commission to SMAC, that was requested from the council table by council member Branch, shortly after the downtown south.
So we got,
Rezoning is how we got here. And he did say specifically, he wanted to see this happen for the purposes of getting input from the SMAC, from the commission in rezoning cases that had stormwater implications. So for that reason, I believe it does fit within the charge to comment as appropriate on cases that may have particularly important stormwater considerations like this. Like this, I think this would qualify. Okay, let's go.
Would it be possible, I mean, I think there's definitely, to kind of like change some of the language and kind of especially towards the conclusion, but potentially at the front of it, before we can get into the background of the site itself, potentially kind of a pre-background of specifically like SMAC's role in this kind of like, here's what SMAC's mission is, here's what we are, here's what we're not vetoing anything, you don't have the power to do that, but this is kind of our opinion and kind of having a framing of maybe the context of our intent in doing this before we kind of get into the case.
I mean, if there's just a little paragraph that says just what you said, your examples, and so-and-so, 2019. Counselor Branch said.
Yeah.
Some action, look at. So we have been evaluating those since then, we haven't taken any action on it, that tees us up for the ability to have this.
right.
And Graham, would you be more comfortable, or are you suggesting that we be less specific on recommendations? To make them more generalized, so we don't get into.
No, I like these as options, basically, and or suggestions like these. We believe this project would be strengthened if these were adopted, right, as recommendations or conditions.
If possible.
But the actual, some of the language in the first page or two feels a little bit. And I'm not saying this in the right way, like. We're right, it's wrong, like a little bit, like, I just don't know if these are just observations. We walk the site, we notice this, we believe it's not consistent, we believe it would do harm. We've done these things, so trying to back maybe the front side off. I think the recommendations, especially the city came up with the recommendations, and we support them. I think that's the thing. They allow council to grab.
Yeah, I did want to clarify, I think when you mentioned city recommendations, it was not anything specific to this project. It was the templates of the types of zoning conditions that could be considered, right? I just want to clarify that the city's not made any specific recommendations related to this case, and that's beyond our authority really as staff, the staff level to do that. Unless requested by the developer, the applicant could talk to us about that, right?
And this does lead with, first bullet is about a comprehensive plan. And I think that is the strongest argument and the most important thing to us.
Yes. That right off the bat should. When you go to rezoning case, that's number that, right, you're inconsistent with that's.
I think it's a good recommendation to include, to reference the comprehensive plan and later points that are a little more amorphous, like climate change, which can be taken as, of course, it can be taken as taking like an overly political stance to talk about that without reference back to our city's, UDO and comp plan. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I also think it makes sense for us to be like, to proceed with caution about, jumping into being a body that suddenly comments on every rezoning opportunity, because that would give all of us a headache, and I'm certainly not offering to take those on. However, I think, that's a bigger conversation for us about, what is our threshold for engagement? What is our priority? I think we don't often see proposals in the secondary watershed area that are against the comp plan. And so perhaps that's one threshold where we know we engage. And maybe we talk about what the other thresholds are that kind of would mean that we would weigh in, just with our expertise. But I think that's a good flag to be cautious of. Sure.
So what I'm hearing is that by and large, we agree with the contents of the letter, maybe massage the language slightly, but no opposition to the specific. Is that a true statement? Okay, all right, so then I'm gonna suggest we make a motion to, or ask that we have a motion to accept the letter with minor modifications, and then we move that on to planning commission. Can I have a motion for that? David, is there a second? Nicola, all in favor? Any opposition? Very good, thank you. Amanda?
And Chair Taylor, just a note, the planning commissioner Otwell did ask that I add some maps to that letter, so I can add full maps in there. Basically showing this, and then a more zoomed out view showing more of the watershed, kind of where we are.
I think that would be great. And if possible, to just indicate where that unmapped intermittent
Yeah.
stream is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have the picture of that, the back of that shopping center.
I can get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He just asked for a couple graphics, a little bit in there.
All right, do you have any other
Yep.
updates?
All right, next one is one we've talked about a few times, Z3523 on 0 Gorman Street in the southwestern part of town. Off of, Gorman Street near the end of Ferry intersection, just downstream of Johnson. This is the one that, is, for affordable housing, and it's 17.8 acre site, and, Partners for Environmental Justice came out against affordable housing in Sarah because of the environmental impacts. It is going to public hearing in city council, the afternoon of March 19th. And per planning as of yesterday, they are looking at conditions that would restrict development to 3 acres with increased tree conservation areas. So only 3 out of 17.8 acres would be developed. Now that is, once again, an unsigned petition, so nothing's set in stone yet, but that's what they're looking at to kind of modify that case at public hearing on March 19th. So they weren't sure about the exact standard for tree conservation, but right now tree conservation areas are about 10% of the sites, so it'll be closer to 20.
Why does PBJ not support, do we know?
Their letter, pretty much, went through the environmental impacts and the issues of putting affordable housing in kind of an environmentally sensitive area. They weren't on board with that, but I can forward the commission that letter.
And that was submitted before the condition to limit development to 3
Yeah.
acres. So their
That was back in
position.
October, I think they made that letter.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you have any sense of where on the property the 3 acres that they would develop is?
So what I've heard is they were putting, their last iteration had extra buffers on the floodplain, kind of these intermittent blue lines going through here. So I think it was gonna be actually more up in this area, but the topo is not great. So, but I don't have a good sense of where exactly they're saying, but they're putting a lot of buffers on like the creek and floodplain beyond what's out there now. And some of their older conditions they had, and I don't think those are going away. This is real flat right here, so even the floodplain stops here, there's only about a 4 foot difference between here and here, so you're not talking about the floodplain being that far away, and that's it. And then the next one is a case we talked about last month, it's still fairly new, it's a Z 2023, it's off a Hardin Road, kind of in close to Northwest Raleigh, getting there near the Lake View Trail area. And it's essentially at Arden Street and Blue Ridge Road here, which Lakeland Trail is kind of off screen right here. And this is kind of, if you ever drive on Blue Ridge Road, this is one of the last undeveloped tracks that's on Blue Ridge Road. Here it's about 7 acres, looking to do apartments. And it was discussed at transportation transit, and the majority of the conversation at the transportation transit council committee revolved around issues of people using apartments up through kind of in this neighborhood that live in the apartment, and kind of heading through this downstream residential neighborhood. And there was a little bit of discussion about stormwater management. The applicant, before it got to council, had already offered treatment up to the 100-year storm for rate control for downstream properties, because there are some issues of yard flooding and severe erosion downstream, but no structural flooding. But they were asking for even more than the 100-year storm. At the neighbors had asked the transportation committee about more than the 100-year storm, and discussed possibly the 500-year storm, or doing the 100-year storm treatment back to back. From staff point of view, we're not super on board with the 500-year storm, because as I told the council committee, that's not really based on anything that we have records for, because obviously we don't have 500 years worth of records. So saying you're talking about 500-year storm, you might not be, because it could be the 101-year storm based on the records we have. So that did get at the council table when they discussed it this past Tuesday. They did decide to send it to Growth and Natural Resources Committee on March 22nd to talk more about stormwater issues. So possibly looking at maybe some more volume controlled conditions to kind of knock down some of that volume, and not just be as concerned about peak and things like that. I will say that this is a private school development here that when it came in, it had a 100-year rate control condition on it as well, and this device is functioning and up to date on their inspection and maintenance. So that could be, maybe some of the neighbors feel like they're still getting impacts. You know, this has been approved for like 7 or 8 years now, so.
For the neighbors, but yeah, I guess who showed up at the, was the private school concerned with anything? Or
The private school.
It's
concerned.
truly the
Yeah, it's the residential, yeah, the proper residential neighborhood down as Nancy and Drive here. So.
The Growth and Natural Resources Committee, I mean, you said there were transportation concerns as well.
Correct.
The stormwater and.
Stormwater was kind of a minor concern at that meeting, but then when it got back to council, it became more of a major concern. And so that's kind of how that went. And so that's why I got put back into another council committee, which hasn't happened a lot. It obviously can happen. But so this will be its second council committee it's been in now, so.
Is that an office building right adjacent to it, or is it?
This is more of an office building.
Okay. So the people, stormwater complaints are coming from further
Yeah,
downstream.
Yeah, downstream, there's a whole right to the neighborhood here,
Right.
down in this area. And that's why they're worried that people will take part and kind of short circuit all the way down to like basically the development, because I hesitate to say it because I don't want you guys taking the shortcut either, but there's no stoplights on Harding. There's like 6 stoplights on Lake Boone between here and development. So. And there's a state building, a pretty tall one, I want to say like 10, 12 stories coming in right here. So that coupled with this being a 7-story apartment complex, the neighbors were worried that increase of people is going to want to use their residential street more. And then Tuesday night, they had the second kind of discussion about the New Bern bus rapid transit rezonings. As you recall, council held a special public hearing on January 30th about this to take neighborhood public comment. And actually, one of the crazier times, we had exactly 35 for, 35 against for at that meeting. They did not take public comment this past Tuesday and just discussed it at the table. Essentially, and I've got their list of recommendations on the next slide, but essentially they approved the transit overlay district with the exception of a few areas, and did not act on the rezoning for all these properties as of yet. We're gonna have more discussion about this on April 2nd as well, in the evening as well. So So this is kind of what we showed you last time about the amount of parcels, so if they were rezoned, the amount of maximum impervious that they could necessarily get access to. But what they approved on Tuesday night was they applied the TOD, or Transit Overlay District, for all the properties except ones that are in a neighborhood conservation overlay district. They took those out of the transfer district, any state-owned properties and properties that had a submitted public request for a removal from that rezoning. 3 properties that they know of, affordable housing projects coming in this corridor, they went ahead and rezoned. One is at 600 Newbern Avenue, and one is Zach's Gas 76. I'm not exactly sure where that is. This is Redemption Planning, and this was rezoned Duplex Village, which is at these addresses on Newbern Avenue. So it basically went from more of a residential zoning to a commercial zoning with increased height on these areas. And if you're part of the transfer overlay district as well, the impact is we get some height bonuses for building denser, things like that, like around transit. So the plan is in April, they will talk about rezoning the rest of these properties, whether that's on the table or whether we should start over. There's been talk of splitting it up from the Beltline East and then kind of do anything on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. And we're talking about that on Tuesday night, so. And no stormwater issues came up in any discussions about that. All right. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Ben.
Okay.
I apologize, I have to leave. One of the functions of being a priest is that emergencies happen. My church member's dying, so I have to go give last rites. So, Graham will lead you from here, and, I might not see you until April.
I do believe that Wayne Stormwater staff updates.
Correct. Yes, we have a new member who's joined us and is here today. I'd like to introduce Seamus Riley, who's our new floodplain management supervisor. He'll be joining Allison Bryan in the floodplain management group, and he comes to us from Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, where he was their floodplain manager and community rating system specialist since 2015. He has a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in environmental science and policy from George Mason University. He's obviously a new resident to Raleigh. So welcome, Seamus. Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Oh, flooding.
Yes, I've got some flooding experience in Louisiana, right? So that's the only staff update. In terms of the commission, Ian McMillan was voted to be on the commission. Unfortunately, could not make this meeting. And then also Melody Whitford was voted just this past Tuesday to join the commission, but with such a short notice was not able to join us today either. So we do have a full commission now officially. So it's good news as well. I'll keep going if that's okay. High priority topics, really just a reminder that on the last item on the agenda today is the officers election for the commission. Be voting on chair, vice chair, and then continue the liaison with the planning commission. I've not received any additional nominations other than the discussion we had at the last meeting. I believe Chairman Taylor expressed an interest in continuing in that position. I think Vice Chair Mr. Smith expressed an interest in continuing, and I believe Commissioner Hill also expressed an interest in, but I have not received any other nominations. If you all wanted to make any other nominations at this point, could think about it the rest of the meeting. Could do that, but otherwise we'll wait until the vote till the very end. An item was raised, and I may turn this over to you, Vice Chair. I believe there was a discussion from the Bike and Pedestrians Advisory Commission, some questions that were raised related to loose leaf collection that may be an appropriate discussion for
smack to have. You may recall you did hear a presentation from our stormwater maintenance group who's responsible for the loose leaf collection program. I think it's related to some issues, primarily related to blocking, potentially causing safety issues from bicycles and pedestrians when the loose leaves are held on the street. I don't know if you
Yeah,
want to add
and they, I forget exactly how it came to us, but they're through the feedback and they asked us to revisit the conversation and maybe come back to them. Maybe they need the session of why we're doing it, but then there's possibly the opportunity to work together on reevaluating that. We don't work sure, so we can see how it goes, but they did ask us to look at it again. So,
To clarify, and just to clarify on that one, is it that actual, like the day of this collection, like the fact that there's material, or is it just the fact that people putting them on the street?
They put in the lead.
Okay, that's fine.
Like the process in general.
Sure.
I think it's the.
Yeah.
Where they're put, how long they're there, and then there may be that moment that is collected. But it-
Yeah, I assumed it was the leaf
It's
related. I
fees
didn't
and
know
no
they were-
collection.
Sure, okay, thanks.
And I think the issue is the requirements or the guidance that residents are given are to rake the leaves onto the edge of but stay on beyond the curb, not on the street. But if they remain there for a while, it can kill the grass. So I think often they do rake it out to the street. And there's just not a good enforcement mechanism nor the staff to enforce something like that. So I think that's the biggest concern here. And I know there's been discussion of whether keep the program, not have the program. I believe Greensboro just stopped their loose leaf collection program, I believe. So, there's arguments both ways. There's an added level of service that Raleigh provides that isn't provided in some other cities.
We don't have the ability to put it in bags and have it the trash, but
Yes, yeah, good. So there are some, yard waste collection, devices that are available now. So that's an option as well for people to use.
Is there like, I mean, a lot of time depending on the neighborhood, depending on, sometimes if people are hiring people to do it, so a lot of times they're just, blow the leaves off the yard and they all, is it kind of awareness campaign or something for not contractors, but yard maintenance teams, I don't know if the correct terminology is, but is it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they'll put them all on the street, so it's like, a lot of people get paid for that, they didn't put them back on the curb, so I don't know. Anyway.
I think I believe I think we're gonna have to open that door a little bit and figure out whether or not we come up with new recommendations and or staff comes to us with some recommendations.
Yeah.
To deal with that. Is there an awareness campaign? Is there a mowing campaign? Is there make sure we all have the yard things to be remove that situation?
Right, yeah.
I think BPAC brought it to us as it is a safety concern.
Sure.
For possibly up to, it's a week to 3 months, those leaves are sitting in,
Sure,
like bed, so.
right.
It's an interesting question for stormwater too, because I mean, in my neighborhood, the option is leave them in the street or leave them in the storm conveyance, which is the only, lines the whole side of the street. So I wonder, what are the alternatives to those two? Maybe the collection storage system is actually the way.
Yeah, if you kept them in your yard, then they would stay out in the storm drains, the goal is then. After about 7 days, it's like,
Mhm.
And there's a requirement for professional landscapers and commercial, if they are removing these, they need to dispose of them themselves. That is a requirement. Now, again, I'm not sure how well enforced that is.
it's not really.
Yeah. So we can bring that back for a future topic of discussion if you'd like to explore.
I think that is. Sure.
Just a FYI, there is a public meeting for our Pigeon House watershed study coming up on March 12th from 4 to 7 at the Tarboro Road Community Center. So that watershed project is well on its way. A lot of the modeling is done, starting to diagnose issues in the watershed and developing improvement alternatives. So if you're interested, please attend or spread the word. And then another FYI on Friday, April 19th, starting at 5 p.m. will be the city's Earth Day celebration at Dix Park. And that will include announcements of the winners of the Capture Arts Contest, which you all will be voting on, later, today in the agenda. So, at the Earth Day will be the final announcements of the winners. A couple, notices prior to construction, Columbia Drive drainage system improvements. That's a project that our in-house transportation crews are constructing. And then, two drainage assistance projects, at Northbrook Drive and Hunting Ridge Drive will be getting construction underway soon. And that's all I have for that agenda item.
Question. Thank you. With tough questions. Yeah. Questions. Then I think he's going to stand up and talk to us about fiscal year 25 budget and rate proposal. I am. There's team, Javier, Barbara, and Scott.
So you may recall in February, we previewed the budget discussion with a background presentation on the process. And so we have a little bit of repeat here, but I'll go through those slides quickly. Just remind you for context, stop me if you have some questions as I'm going through those. But we will also put our proposal together. And should you want to endorse or make a recommendation, you may at your discretion at the end. We do have a presentation which is very similar to this, a little bit shorter, to actual city council this coming Monday, March 11th, at the budget work session. So Raleigh Stormwater and Raleigh Water will both be presenting our budget presentations to city council at that meeting. You all have seen this, won't review it in detail, but always like to review our mission and all that goes into meeting that mission. The vision, be the smartest stormwater program possible to economically and equitably achieve our mission. In short, be stormwater smart. Great photo of the Peterson Street bioretention device out by the Walnut Creek Wetland Center. And we apply this stormwater smart philosophy to everything that we do in stormwater. There's a lot that goes into supporting that overall mission, and have a great team that work very well together collaboratively to implement all of those programs. Raleigh's growing. We face many challenges. We face flooding challenges, often from the legacy development that went in place before we had the stormwater regulations that we have now. Have a lot of aging infrastructure, especially downtown. Pipes that have been put in decades ago are aging, and we have a good asset management program to investigate that, but that does create needs. And then obviously we've talked a lot about water quality issues, erosion issues, stream bank issues, a whole variety. But we have a multitude of solutions and programs to help address those. Floodplain regulations have been beefed up. We have a very good flood early warning system. We've seen some past presentations on that, as well as our education and outreach program. Lots of system improvements, repairs, replacements, aging infrastructure, increased capacity in neighborhoods. And then very proud of our green stormwater infrastructure initiative too, and a lot of good work going on there to improve water quality. And rainwater rewards. You all have been very supportive and involved in that, so appreciate that support. Watershed studies. We've talked a lot about the operationalizing equity. We'll be bringing more back on that project to you here in just a couple of months. And then obviously you're very familiar with the drainage assistance and stream stabilization programs because you all review those projects, and lots of good work going on there. A map really of dots with our capital improvements projects, water quality projects, and drainage assistance, stream stabilization projects that are going on all across the city. Lots of good work by our team. And then you can see the boulder lines outlining the ongoing watershed studies going right now. And now we are moving into the Marsh Creek Basin will be the next study where we're already starting to do some field work in that regard. Continue to lead by example. The budget includes funding to continue supplementing funding for other departments' projects so that we can add green stormwater infrastructure. An example of that is the Gibson Play Plaza at Dix Park. We added supplemental funding to add bioretention of the parking area as well as the stormwater wetlands in the meadow area. So continue to look for opportunities to do that. Lots of good collaboration going on with other departments, transportation, parks, and facilities to look for additional opportunities to do that. And you've seen presentations in the past on our stormwater maintenance crews continue to do an excellent job stepping up in terms of the maintenance of pipes that are being inspected and cleaned, and catch basins cleaned, street sweeping. This is one of the new recycling trucks that really improves the efficiency of the cleaning program. So lots of excellent work going on right back here out of this facility, and you'll all tour that. So excellent work with that. And so this is supported by our stormwater fee, which is an impervious surface-based fee, broken into residential categories and commercial categories. The existing fee is based on residential tiers that have a threshold of impervious area. The most common one is tier 2, and that's $7.36. That's our standard equivalent unit fee per month, per home in that tier 2 category. And then the commercial rates are actually proportioned to the amount of impervious area. And I'll give an example of that based on that 2,260 square foot equivalent unit. Over time, for the first 16 years of this program, we had one fee increase, and that was in FY 2017. In FY 21 and 22, we had slightly larger increases to kind of catch up for not having a rate increase for a while. And then more recently in 22, 23, and 24, which is our current fiscal year, we've had more modest increases, 18 cents the last 2 years. So we believe we are kind of caught up in this area where we can continue with modest, smaller, more modest increases to adjust for operating costs, inflation, and some program expansion, which we do have one suggestion this year that I'll get into. This year for FY 25, we are proposing a 29 cents per equivalent unit per month increase in the fee, and that comes out to be a little bit less than 4% increase. So that would take the $7.36 per month, which is the current fee, up to $7.65 per month. You can see what our projections show that will do to the budget. It takes it from about $36.4 million to $38.9 million. And the capital improvements budget would go from 13.1 to 13.8. Now, there are two factors that go into this revenues. One is the fee, which we're proposing a 29 cent increase, but built into that number also is a projected increase in the amount of impervious areas. So we're growing. So there's a between 1% and 2% typically increase in impervious area any given year. So if you look at the fee increase is 4%, this increase is about 6.5% overall because of both of those factors. There's what it looks like in terms of the bar chart for FY 25. So adding the 29 cents compared to our past rates. And here's what that does in terms of projected revenue. It gets us to a total of 38.9 with the breakdown of 25 million of operating costs and 13.9 million of capital improvements costs. For comparison purposes, as related to our peers, we have both North Carolina communities, and then also in the blue bars are southeast capital cities. We're a capital city where stormwater utilities are particularly relevant because, for example, state properties will pay a stormwater fee, but they do not pay taxes. So we have a lot of state property in Raleigh. So that's one of the advantages of the stormwater fee and making it a utility is properties that do not pay property taxes still pay a stormwater fee based on the service that they receive. So with the proposed increase, of 29 cents. We really stay about in the same position where we were previously relative to our peers. We have done some research, and over the past year, there have been quite a few cities that had some fairly significant rate increases, the ones that are in these green boxes. I know Durham's went up over $1 a month. Charlotte's, I think, went up even more than that the past year. But we're comfortable where we are. We think we provide a lot of service for the fee that we charge, and are comfortable with the proposal that we have. But those 8 cities averaged about 15.2%. So there are some other programs that are looking at fee increases and have already actually implemented some fee increases in the past year. Quick reminder, so the impact on a residential bill, typical median single-family home would be from $736 to $765 per month. And then if you look at an example of a commercial bill, so that property there is a commercial building with parking all around it, has over 47,000 square feet of impervious area. Using our equivalent unit, it's about 21 equivalent units. So their monthly fee would be 21 times the $7.65. In this example, that would take their current fee from $154 a month to $160 per month, for example. And then looking at where our revenues come from, because the majority of impervious surface in Raleigh is associated with commercial properties, and that includes, for example, apartments, right, are considered commercial property. Apartments that are built all together is one unit. So we get about 2/3 of our revenue from commercial properties and about 1/3 of our revenue from residential properties, which, for example, property taxes is more like 50-50. So receiving revenues from a stormwater impervious type of fee does put more of the burden, if you will, on the commercial properties who are generating more runoff because of the impervious surfaces that they have. So it is a difference versus stormwater programs that are funded by property taxes. Looking at our capital improvements, I think you've seen this before too. We do keep track of our total known capital improvement projects, and this comes from our watershed studies. This comes from our aging infrastructure investigations, stream corridor walks. We have about $835 million of total known capital improvements project needs. And you can see the breakdown, major CIP, water quality, aging infrastructure, flood mitigation. So using our current pay-as-you-go, which means we only do projects that we can pay for this year, which is historically what we have done in stormwater. It's going to take us a while, 64 years, and that's if that number doesn't change to get through that known CIP needs. With the increase that we're proposing, it would knock it down a little bit. But as we've discussed before, we are working with the finance department to implement a debt service strategy that we will start using debt service. And we believe this is a more fair and equitable way of implementing stormwater improvements, because when we build, especially the major CIP project, this is infrastructure that when you build it will last 50, 60, 70 plus years, right? So why should people that live here now be the only ones that pay for that infrastructure that's going to last much longer than this? If you use a debt service financing strategy and we pay it off over 30 years, then the users for the next 30 years will be paying for that infrastructure. So that's the strategy. It also gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of how many capital improvements projects we can implement, as well as the size of some of the larger capital improvements projects. So you can see the implications here. Actually, this is FY25. So this is our budget. Let me go back to, so this is the one that has how much financing or how much CIP we can do with financing over the next 5 years. So sticking with a PAYGO model, about $73 million of projects. We implement debt financing, we can take that up to $25 million projects. And a lot of that is the major CIP projects, because those are the larger projects. And some examples of that, Rose Lane, which is a $10 to $12 million project. If we weren't using debt service, it would be very difficult to fit that into pay as we go, just 1 year's budget. We wouldn't be able to do much of anything else. This is another one that we're moving forward. This is about a $5 million project. This one's under design. This you heard a more detailed presentation on a few months ago. Battleford and Whispering Branch, another project that the streets get flooded and homes are cut off. That's their only access. So that's one of our major CIP projects. And then Smoky Hollow Park, which is a parks project and has about $13 million in the parks bond. But Stormwater is proposing another $5 million as part of a revenue bond because of the significant stormwater elements to this project. We're restoring the floodplain. We're daylighting Pigeon House Branch, which is the most impaired stream in Raleigh, taking it out, restoring the meanders, restoring the riparian buffers, taking buildings out of the floodplain, and really improving water quality overall. So significant water quality benefits to this project as well. And all of these projects are currently underway, in design or moving into the design phase. So the debt financing, we're proposing to put in place in FY26 as these projects are going to construction that allow us to then move forward with construction and all of these projects together, where we could not have done that with a pay-go strategy. One new proposal, and I think I mentioned this last month, we are adding in this FY25 budget a proposal for a 4-person green stormwater infrastructure maintenance crew. This would be brand new so far. Parks has been helping a little bit with maintenance of this and charging us back through our work order system. But we've been contracting most of it out to a contractor to do the maintenance. This would bring our capabilities in-house, allow us to get additional expertise and build this expertise. And the model that we're using, as you know, the stormwater utility pays for positions in transportation, stormwater maintenance crew, even though they're in a different department. This model would be similarly in that these positions would be housed in the parks department, but we would pay for those 4 positions and then work closely with them to help them set their priorities and their work schedules and so forth. So that's about 11 cents of the 29-cent increase that's being proposed is going toward that maintenance crew. And it's not just the people, it's the equipment, it's trucks and other equipment and so forth. So that's the presentation. Glad to answer any questions. At this point, you may provide a recommendation for consideration by City Council. As I've mentioned, we will be presenting this to City Council at their work session on March 11th. But any final rate approvals would not occur until the City Council adopts the overall fiscal year 25 budget. The work session on Monday is just to give them a preview and get any preliminary feedback on the proposal from City Council. Glad to take any questions.
Any questions for? I have two. Just to confirm, you've said this before, but just I think I want to hear it again. Debt service is something that you don't need to advertise. It's something that's built into the city system already. You need to just get City Council to say do it, or you need to just get the budget director to say.
Correct. So in city government, there are 2 types of bonds. Okay, there are general obligation bonds that are paid back with property taxes. Okay, from North Carolina state law, GO bonds must go to a vote of the community and be approved by those who pay property taxes, the community basically to be approved. So the parks bond, for example, was a general obligation bond. What we have the authority to do in stormwater are revenue bonds. Okay, they are paid back with the stormwater utility revenues. We have not used this power up to this point. But the analogy would be Raleigh Water has the same basic revenue bond authority, and they use it for water treatment plant upgrades, wastewater treatment plant upgrades, a lot of their larger capital improvement projects, and then they pay it back over 30 years. So, revenue bonds do not need a vote. They basically just need approval of the budget by city council with the capital improvements that has that as the funding mechanism in it.
You have to name the projects that are tied to it, to the revenue.
We do not by law have to. We typically give examples of projects as we have done here. But we are not bound to use those specific projects to do that. There's a lot of flexibility. If a project got delayed, we can move another project in and use that bond capacity to do that project. But we are trying to, and we have actually gotten into a lot of granularity with our cash flow projections for those projects, because the way we would implement this debt funding is we wouldn't sell the bonds immediately. The mechanism that we would use, which Raleigh Water has started using, so we're learning a lot from that because it makes it a lot easier. They sell what's called bond anticipation notes, which are a short-term debt service for usually 2 years. I think of it like the mortgage analogy, right? The bond is the 30-year mortgage. The bond anticipation note is almost like a HELOC, right? Like a home equity loan where it's kind of a short-term thing where you can take that out, spend that up. And then once you get that all used up, convert it to a more permanent revenue bond for say 30 years that you would then pay off. And it's a much more flexible way of implementing the debt service rather than selling a big bond for, $50 million. And then you got that money sitting at the bank as you spend it. With a bond anticipation note, you get this capacity and you only borrow what you need to pay a specific check that comes in from the contractor, for example. So it's a lot more efficient way of doing debt.
Thank you.
Does the city actually sell it, or does it have to go through the local government commission, state treasurer?
Yeah, good question. So the city is the bond holder. We sell it, but the local government commission does have to approve all municipal debt before it's issued. And that's kind of a North Carolina specific entity that most states don't have, but it's also that local government commission oversight is why so many municipalities in North Carolina have such good bond ratings to a lot of other states. They do take a very specific look at debt as it's being proposed by city and have to approve that by North Carolina state law. So good question, good point. Yeah.
I noticed that part of the debt financing piece was also a look at grant opportunities, and I was just wondering if, I feel like I should know this, but is the city utilizing any federal or state infrastructure money, or is there eyes on any grant funding in that regard?
Yes, absolutely. So you may recall we're using $3 million of ARPA funds for stormwater projects. Some of the projects, the Lions Park Green Stormwater Infrastructure Project is ARPA funded. The Worthdale Park GSI and Stream Restoration Project is ARPA funded. The Heat Island GSI is ARPA funded. Rose Lane Design is ARPA funded, so that kicked that off. We've also gotten a land and water grant for the Upper Durant Nature Park conversion of the habitat wetland. And we have just submitted another land and water grant fund application for Smoky Hollow. I believe the Dick's Conservation Fund partnered with this city, submitted one for the stream restoration at Dick's Park. And then one that we also submitted last fall, there was an application through the Corps of Engineers through the WRDA, Water Resources Development Act, for up to $15 million of funding in vulnerable and disadvantaged communities. So that would, and we expect to hear something here in the next couple of months, but that funding could go for example, a Rose Lane type of project or other flooding projects in Walnut Creek in particular is the focus area that we put that application in for. But yeah, good question. definitely taking a close look at that and continue to look for opportunities where, especially where our projects that we know will score well from a priority point standpoint, they're usually competitive based on priority points, where we think will score well, we do put in proposals for grants and other opportunities. Yeah, thanks for the question.
The last question, the GSI crew, 11 cents this year pays for lots of equipment and staff, but where does that look like moving? What's the impact moving forward?
Yeah, good question. So that 11 cents generates about $500,000 roughly for, it would fund that 4-person crew. And the equipment costs are typically paid off on a 5-year program, so it would stay about the same for the next 5 years. Now, tentatively, we're looking at expanding that crew, maybe 2 more people in the next year or 2 after that. And then, you know, we're going to keep an eye on, from an asset management standpoint, resource needs. And now that our GSI policy is in place, right, we do anticipate the city will be including GSI on more city projects. As we track in our work order system, the labor hours, the expenses, we do expect that to go up in the most cost-effective way. We believe to handle that increased maintenance responsibilities would be likely to expand the crew or do another crew in the future.
Thank you for that. I think we're done with questions, so thank you. Do we want to, I guess, provide a recommendation for consideration for some council? Would anybody like to? We can consent, but just not have any comment, therefore it moves forward, or we can make a recommendation to be here in agreement with your budget.
Might as well make a recommendation.
Okay. I think we have a motion. That's not it. Anybody want to say? Okay. All right, all in favor?
Thank you very much. Appreciate the support.
Thank you. Next, we have an update on Smoky Hollow Park and the stream restoration project. Megan Walsh and Gary Cleveland.
I feel like Wayne stole a lot of our thunder, but no.
I need to teach you.
Yeah. My name is Meg Walsh. I'm a senior engineer in the water quality section within Stormwater. And I'm excited to be here today to be able to provide an update on the Smoky Hollow Park project. And I'm also joined by Gary Claiborne, who is the current manager of the project in the park department. And also with 2 members of the design team, Jonathan Smith with Tetra Tech and Emmett Purdue with Ecosystem Planning and Restoration. And before I hand it over to Gary to talk about the background of the project, I just wanted to reiterate, you know, the collaborative nature of this project. As I mentioned, Parks has been managing it since 2017. And we've been involved, you know, even before the schematic design phase, but especially through the schematic design phase. And once the schematic design phase is finished up this spring, management of the project will move to stormwater. So we aim to keep that collaborative effort going, and we'll be working closely with Parks to ensure the success of this project. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gary.
What Megan did not mention is she's gonna be the future project. So as Megan mentioned, I'm Gary Claiborne. I'm capital project supervisor with Raleigh Parks. I've been working on this project since 2020, but Parks Department as a whole, we actually put the original RFQ out for this back in 2016. So big picture here, what you're seeing today is the schematic design plan, which approximates about 30% of the design effort. We have gone through a fairly significant environmental site studies of the project, as well as conceptual design process for this. Lots of public engagement. We're kind of at that step right now where we're seeking final approval. In a couple of weeks, we actually go before the Parks Board. for their recommendation for approval, and then that goes to city council for hopeful final approval. So, the project site itself here, you're looking basically downtown is kind of like down here, and you're looking north up towards North Hills. The existing site's around just a little under 14 acres in size. It's a current city of Raleigh maintenance facility. You may remember the old salt shed that used to be on there. You can see from Capitol Boulevard. It still is in use as a maintenance facility. There is one office building still there, and then there's a service station building in the middle here. The history of this site goes back, this has been owned by the city for well over 100 years. From the 1940s to the early 1970s, the Devereaux Meadow ball field was in this area here that's kind of outlined in the white dash. That was a minor league ballpark, so it was fairly important. It was kind of like the Durham Bulls field for Raleigh at the time. The other significant part of this site is that Mission House Branch flows along the western edge of the site. And a portion of it, designated here, is actually underground. It's in an underground culvert. The reason for that is because of the baseball stadium. That is essentially where the first baseline used to be, was right there. So, and so that remains, underground. The remainder of the stream, is daylighted, but it's also in a highly urbanized, deep channelized condition. Most of the site is within the floodplain of the Pigeon House Branch. Other significant features include there are lots of utilities in there. And because of the use of the site, going back again, 100 years as use of the maintenance facility, there is groundwater and soil contamination within the site, primarily in the center portion of the site where the service station is. There's a number of underground storage tanks, which are going to be removed this summer as part of an advanced remediation effort of the project. But we do, one of the goals of the project is actually site remediation in conjunction with the park construction. So just overall project timeline, I don't want to go too much detail into this, but going back to 2017 through 2020, the city went through a series of site studies, including the initial work and understanding the site contamination issues. In 2020, right at the start of COVID, is when we started the concept design process for this, and we went through a rather, rigorous public engagement process, although at the time it was virtual for a lot of it. But we have received a lot of participation. There have been hundreds of people that have attended meetings, virtual or live, otherwise, also worked on our surveys. In November 2022, the concept plan was approved by the city council. And then that started the schematic design process, which really started last summer. And is funded primarily by the both the 2014 and 2022 parks bonds. And long-term, the eventual timeline is we do hope that the goal is for park construction to be completed by the end of 2027. In terms of the concept plan, just so you understand a little bit of the background, we did go through a concept plan process where the design team came up with 3 design concepts, all really centered around to a greater or lesser degree to how Pigeon House Branch was really treated. Concept 1, the Pigeon House Branch pretty much stayed in the existing condition as it is now, with some restoration of the stream bank in the daylighted sections. Concept 2 stays in the same alignment, will be daylight the section that's currently underground. And then concept 3, where we really take the stream out of the existing alignment and start to flow through the site in a more natural condition. In the end, for our public engagement process, concept 3 was the preferred alternative. So this is the current schematic design plan. We did have an open house this past Saturday. Kind of presenting this. This is what is going to go before the Parks Board in a couple of weeks. It's where we took that concept design and really kind of like started to refine the design, really get to the details in terms of how the entry plaza looks, how the main greenway path, which goes from south to north, how that really starts to work with the stream and the secondary pathways. You'll see here the suspension house branch kind of flowing to the site, as mentioned, and then there also is a constructed wetland feature as well. So there's more details to this, but I think that's the kind of like the important topics to cover in terms of the stormwater issues.
You, Gary. Again, Emmett Purdue. I'm with Ecosystem Planning and Restoration, and I've been tasked with the stream restoration portion of the project. As Gary alluded to through the public engagement, the community really emphasized the key elements of the park to be stream enhancement, natural areas, and what water quality benefits that we could strive for. So with that, we have the existing Pigeon House branch, which, as Gary mentioned, is a highly incised and entrenched system and urbanized watershed. We have the existing park constraints. So think underground and overhead utilities, the culverts at Dorch and then at Peace. And then we had to also layer in the additional park elements, the amenities that the community also desired to be a part of the park. So that kind of set the boundaries of where we could work and what we could do. And so what we then did is kind of divide the stream portion of it into a northern and a southern portion. And while the southern portion does appear to be a meandering system, we don't actually have the full horizontal expanse to allow it to function as a meandering system. But what we were able to do there is provide some more expansive floodplain benching that promotes riparian health and gives the site some of the flood resiliency that we wanted as part of the project as well. The northern part of the stream transitions back to, it's not incised and entrenched in the park, but it's making the transition back to Dorch Street Culvert to then go off the park site and re-enter that system. It also provides us the space to accommodate the stormwater wetland piece. So with that, those are kind of the rest of the stream. So that's kind of the overall concepts. The stream itself will incorporate several different types of in-stream structures. There'll be wood and rock structures that will promote pool development, bed form diversity, and in-stream habitat for bugs and things like that to allow some of the animals to come back. They will be placed throughout the whole system to really promote turbulent flow, because again, this isn't a meandering system. So we need turbulence in the stream to provide the energy dissipation that the system requires to become a stable system in this configuration. So that's kind of the overview of the design approaches. But in terms of the ecological benefit, it's kind of easier to see when you look at the stream change, the actual footprint, and then the land use change within the park setting. So on the left, you have the existing conditions. On the right, you have the proposed. And really the main takeaways are roughly 820 feet of this system, as Gary mentioned, are either in a hardened line channel or in a culvert. We are proposing to remove all of that and have a completely open channel from Peace to Dorch. Additionally, as you can see, there's significant impervious area within the park footprint. We are going to remove a lot of it and change it back into some form of natural plantings or open water. So those two components alone will allow for infiltration and retention. And then it'll also allow the construction of the stormwater component that Jonathan's about to speak to, that will really allow the design to achieve the ecological benefit that the community desires.
Hi, as Emmett mentioned, I'm Jonathan Smith, the project manager for Tetra Tech. In addition to the water quality benefits afforded by the restoration of Pigeon House Branch and the removal of the significant amount of impervious area, the project design also incorporates a stormwater management device in the form of a stormwater wetland, which Gary and Emmett both pointed out during their portion. And this is able to treat a 63-acre watershed, which originates in the Seaboard Station area, incorporating very significant imperviousness. I think it was 61% impervious for that drainage area. It enters into the project site under Capitol Boulevard and flows from east to west, right in the dead center of the project. Now that the space and the allocation for that stormwater wetland is a bit constrained. It's constrained horizontally by the presence of a north-south sewer interceptor, as well as Pigeon House Branch and the proposed greenway for the project. And it's constrained vertically by the deep elevation of that culvert, which comes in 54-inch AG RCP, and then as well, the new elevation for Pigeon House Branch. As a result of those constraints, it's a relatively small stormwater wetland, about 5% of what we would typically design for this size watershed. To mitigate the impacts of that, the design incorporates a diversion structure so that smaller flows are routed through the wetland and then down to Pigeon House, whereas larger flows during those higher intensity storms discharge directly through the diversion system to Pigeon House, so they don't flush out pollutants and flush out collected materials and vegetation in the stormwater wetland. So despite its small size, that stormwater wetland does provide some significant water quality benefits. Our initial analysis for pollutant removal indicates it's going to remove about 18 pounds of nitrogen per year and about a little over 2 pounds of phosphorus per year, which is effectively about 3 to 4% of those pollutants from the contributing watershed. The wetland will incorporate an impermeable liner. Gary mentioned the on-site groundwater and soils contamination. And so in order to protect the wetland from that contamination and to kind of keep it constrained so that we can remediate it using the remediation measures that are planned, the stormwater wetland will have an impermeable liner.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to get more into some of the gathering places that are in the schematic design plan, including the Peachtree Plaza, which is really going to be a grand entrance, almost coming from Peachtree, looking north in into the site. And you'll have the newly restored Pigeon House Branch on to the west of that, and then Capitol Boulevard's on the right. But in this space, there's going to be some seating, picnic areas, and just some flexible programming, such as the ability for food trucks to be there. Also, there's going to be a bridge that connects this plaza over Pigeon House Branch to the western edge. Another gathering place is off of Northwest Street, and it's the West Street entrance. It's a bit higher in elevation, so there's going to be an overlook structure, and it's at approximately in the center of the site going north. So visitors will be able to have a grand view of the site and be able to connect down to the secondary trails. And moving into the engagement, Gary spoke to it earlier, but there have been 2 recent meetings as part of the schematic design phase. One in December, which solicited input on the draft schematic design. And one of the project was very, people thought very favorably of it. One of the biggest comments or themes of comments was reducing some of the hardscape features. So the West Street entrance, which I just had on the previous slide, actually was reduced in size in order to address those comments. But overall, people were very happy with the project, stayed for a while. There were about 60 attendants at the December meeting, and there was an online survey that had over 350 responses. And then there was, there was just recently a public meeting last Saturday to present the final schematic design. So funding and next steps, just putting up the funding that we mentioned. It is funded with Parks Bond funds as well as stormwater funds. So in the stormwater funding, the big chunk of it, most of it will come in during the construction phase. And next steps include presenting the schematic design to council. As Gary mentioned, there'll be some service station demolition and underground storage tanks removed, which will start in a couple months. The continuation of the remedial investigations with the phase 3 starting pretty soon. And then the transfer of the management of the project over to stormwater. And then we're also going to deliver the project through construction manager at risk. So that's actually a first for stormwater. So we're looking forward to developing that RFQ. And then, the design development, construction documents, final permitting, and then construction. Wayne spoke to the recent application that we just put in last week. And the funds that were requested as part of this grant application will go towards the construction of the stream restoration. Some of the match funds are what we will be using to construct the wetland. And if those are granted, then we would be looking at being able to set up a grant contract next year. So with that, thank you, and we're happy to take any questions.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say, yeah, very inspiring and exciting to see that this work's being done. So
Have you completed any borings on the site yet? Because I know there's tons of bedrock north of there.
Many borings. I
Okay.
think 40 or 60 today through the two phases of the remedial investigation completed today.
You know, I'm curious if you were able to figure out where that stream used to be. I know there's probably no photos.
So we haven't seen indications in the boring logs that show the stream location. But we have relied early in the process looking at some very old aerial photos and maps, which did indicate that it was likely further into the site than its current far western location.
And early on, you had a survey to pick the name, choose the name of the park.
Yeah.
I like the name.
Of the 19 million, how much will be spent in kind of that first phase of demo remediation? Maybe you touched on it, but I mean, what's the $2 million hit to kind of get the site ready, or is it?
Well, I think there's still some remedial action plan to be done. There's additional testing to be done this summer, additional drilling, so they're around there, monitoring wells in place, and that's complete. Then a remedial action plan will be developed, kind of like determines what happens prior to real park construction, and then what could happen in situ with the park construction as well.
I
We're using different techniques, so.
Yeah, I guess there's the 19 go to 21, or does the 19 kind of cover some level of 30% of contingency, you know?
We maintain several layers of contingency within there, so.
Is the city used for contract manager risk before?
Yes, the city has, on
Just
this,
to-
right, this is just the sort of first one. But for example, the city tower is construction management risk, the Gibson Play Plaza, I believe, is construction management risk. Yes, several projects have been delivered.
Board run my bike here. Stop talking.
Appreciate the time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So we have Capture Arts Contest finalized. Heather, there we go. Good here. Yep.
We need a stretch break. Hope at least your thumbs are warmed up because you're going to be doing some voting today on our phones or your computers. So, all right. Well, hi, everyone. We're going to talk about the Capture It contest today. It's kind of a fun part of our job. My name is Heather Dutra. I'm our water quality supervisor. I'll be joined by Ariel Bichelle and Amy Farinelli in the back. And together we're all coordinating our Capture It contest this year after Carmela's retirement. So just a little bit of background if y'all have not been part of this before. So this contest is open for any student that lives or attends school in the Raleigh area or Raleigh's PTJ. It's grades 8 through 12, and there are 2 categories, video and artwork. And there is a $500 grand prize for each category. So this is really important. And today we want to recognize the finalists that have made it thus far. We will not be revealing the grand prize winners today, although we will be emailing them because they will be, as Wayne mentioned, recognized at our Earth Day event on April 19th. But these finalists have already gone through an internal jury of 14 staff, city staff. And so we also want to recognize this year we usually only get to show our finalists and grand prize winners, but you can't believe how many wonderful artists and artwork that we receive. And so this year, we're partnering with the Pullen Art Center to actually have an exhibit, a youth and teen exhibit at the Pullen Art Center through mid-April through mid-May. So that way, many of the 60 submissions that we received this year will get to have their recognition as well. And we're actually going to have an opening reception. It's very fancy, y'all. Opening reception on April 27th from 2:30 to 4:30. We'll have food, and the students and their parents and their friends, they can all come, and y'all are all welcome to recognize them. So I think that's, okay. What is this contest? Okay, so the purpose of it is to bring community awareness to the importance of keeping our waterways clean. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the artwork. We're going to be judging on creativity, messaging, and quality. All right, are we ready? Oh, instruction. Let's go to that area. Matt, can you give instructions? Okay, so you're going to use your phone or laptop to vote, and you should have all received a link in your emails. Okay. So voting is from 1 to 5. So 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. Please do not leave it blank. That's a big 0, and that will definitely impact those scores. You will select a score for each submission before submitting, and we will review this twice. So you can have like the portfolio ahead of time, kind of pick sort of your favorites, and then the second time we'll actually do the voting. And I will share the name to recognize them if they're listening online. But y'all can read their artist statement on your.
If you have any questions or technical issues, feel free to let me know and I'll come back.
Yeah, and we're happy to go back if we need more time, but we'll try to do this as efficiently as possible. All right, are you ready? All right, we'll do artwork first. It's the artwork category. And actually, this is a 3-dimensional artwork by Brady Sharp, Addison Blackwood, Spencer Johnson, and Nathan Ellington. We have a video of the artwork. And if y'all can tell, it's a rain barrel. Pretty cool. And this is called Little Ducks, Big World, and these are 11th graders. Second artwork to show is David Mulford. It's All in Our Hands, also 11th grade. Lisa Wang, The Journey of Water Drops, 12th grade. Seth Clark, The Polluted Mind, 12th grade. And Reese Price and Jada Price, What Could Be, 8th grade. And now it's time to make your submit your votes.
Hey, Matt, just a suggestion. Maybe I would suggest leaving it on 1 until everybody says they're done with voting for that one.
Okay.
And then proceed. Is that okay for the commission? Or you have time to vote? Okay.
You want to leave it on this one?
And we realize it's, and we kind of keep them all 5 up, so that's us.
Okay.
So it's good. if we don't-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Advance? I'd be jealous of these kids.
Way too many.
All right, so the video submissions are 60 seconds each.
We can really quick and next.
All right, the first one is AJ Toller, the Sleep on Poop, 12th grade.
Over 65 million households in the US own a dog. That's a lot of dogs and a lot of dog doo-doo. Most would hear this and say, who cares? It doesn't matter if the rain will wash everything away. But that's the problem. We all live in a watershed, meaning the rain washes away the abandoned dog poop to a single point, along with harmful bacteria and excess nutrients. This bacteria is incredibly harmful to freshwater fish and can contaminate city water. The excess nutrients can trigger algae blooms, which disrupt the natural processes of freshwater biomes. Let's see what dogs have to say about this issue. What are your thoughts on how your poop impacts the environment? Sir, we need answers. Clearly, our dogs don't have much to say about this problem, so it's up to us to fix it. By ensuring that your dog's happy little accidents are properly disposed into a trash can, you can show your love to the entire animal kingdom. And that's the scoop on poop.
All right, Josephine Wright, dirty drains, the impact of stormwater pollution in Raleigh, 8th grade. Okay, Giovanni Brasabio, stormwater, invisible threats, 12th grade. Okay, Jenna Newton and Ethan Sisley, stormwater runoff, 12th grade.
Stormwater flowing along our streets can pick up tons of pollutants, destroying our watersheds. Here we see a man who is in his car, speeding through a parking lot, throwing his water bottle in the wind, and we watch it as it crashes to the concrete as he drives away, not a care in his mind. Eventually, that water bottle will end up in the storm water drains to be swept along. On and on it will float, creeping relentlessly closer to polluting our watersheds. Once the pollutants reach their goal, in our case the mighty Neuse River, it can endanger wildlife and reshape waterways, both resulting in catastrophic problems for our lakes and rivers. One by one, bottle by bottle, you too can save the earth from its polluted doom.
And then third date and Xuxing Wang runoff to save our environment, 12th grade.
Here's where we start. A storm. It seemingly has little to no effect on our day-to-day lives. But stormwater runoff can harm us. Whether it be plastics, pet waste, or pesticides. What gets in our water affects us and the wildlife around us. Help protect our community today by preventing harmful runoff.
Hard decisions. Do y'all need the videos played again, or do you feel like you've retained them? Do we need to go through again to store, or have you already stored? Okay.
Yeah, just click submit and I'll double check.
We're all so good.
Aren't they?
Goodness.
It's incredible. So the videos will be at the reception playing. They won't be all month long, but all the artwork will be all month long at Pullen Art Center. But yeah, I mean, these are just amazing. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for voting. It means a lot to our community. And thank you to the teachers or students who are listening. Thank you for contributing to this wonderful contest. Thank you.
A round of applause for all of them.
Very impressive. And thanks to Heather and Gary for going through that. Everyone. We get to the election of the chair, vice chair, planning commission liaison. It's Stormwater Management Advisory Commission rules and procedure. The commission shall elect the chair, vice chair each March. Staff recommends the commission also appoint a liaison to the planning commission for a concurrent term. So here we are this morning. I don't know how it's goes. Do you do it? I do it.
This is a commission item. I can make suggestions, but there's really no guidance in our rules of procedure for how to do this. It just says the commission shall elect the chair and vice chair.
Okay, and I will restate that Reverend Taylor did note that he would like to continue on as chair, and I'm happy to be vice chair as well. Yet if we have talked that if there are other nominees, we could do a paper ballot if people were more comfortable with that. So certainly fair to, if someone wants to do that, don't want to put anybody in an uncomfortable spot. We will have then the election, or are there any other nominees for chair? Yes. Then Reverend Taylor. Hearing none. All in favor of Reverend Taylor? Raise your hand. Yeah, there you have. A good chair. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? If there are none, then I'm not gonna vote, all in favor, me being vice chair, yeah. Good, thank you. And I believe Ola has offered to be planning liaison again. And so I guess, are there any other nominees for planning commission? Yes, sir. Seeing none, all in favor? Ms. Hill being planning commission liaison again? Good hand. Here we go. So thank you all. There we go.
You guys have done a great job. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And thanks to Wayne and Scott for keeping. And then keeping call up on task. And that's it. At the end, we have the preliminary topics for upcoming meetings. The April through June meetings, there's always our kind of quarterly rainwater rewards updates or drainage assistance, stream stabilization updates. There is something coming our way, small business toolkit from the sustainability team. And then in May, we'll get some public engagement information, some utility fee, the credit enhancement projects. We're gonna start to work on the work plan, which we really don't need to get out there and with council until October, first meeting in October. We do have to present a work plan each year. So this may slide to, we're currently saying it's May, we start to talk about what our work plan is. But it may slide to January, we'll see that, but we kind of want one session, at least when we have dialogue. We'll have a conversation, we'll have a station, kind of refine it. So. Then a few other things, I know that we have asked, and I know that the team is working on the operational equity work. That's been ongoing, so we some feedback about that, and Lake County's One Water Initiative. If there are other things, I guess, bring them forward to us, shoot an email to me or Reverend Taylor, and we can definitely, we have pre-meetings just to go through the agenda and make sure we understand it and what's coming up. But we can certainly add that to the meeting agenda, but Scott and Wayne. We're also looking at not having a meeting in July, because it falls on July 4th. And it's also traditionally what city council takes a month off or attend missing one of the meetings, so that they have a little bit of summer break. So we will not most likely be. No, that's what it's done. That's it. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Well, does anybody have anything else going on? Anybody want to talk about anything?
I just wanted to square, with just the next steps on the conversation with Strickland Road parcel, just so we're all clear. I heard that there was a request for one of us to attend the planning commission meeting on the 12th. I don't know if we've decided who's able to do that. I know that I'm not able to do that morning.
Yeah, it's with Reverend Taylor, and he's unfortunately unable to as well, and there might be some changes, but I think we can talk, make sure we have representation there.
Yeah, Reverend Taylor mentioned it to me that you guys didn't make it, so either Nicola or I will, one of us will make it, I think.
Yeah, I'm in Charlotte.
Here, Charlotte, yeah. I have the 9 o'clock time is great, but if we start at 10, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge, because I'm pushing it some other meetings, so, then I guess, how would I get in? I'll just reach out to the planning commission?
Yeah, no, we will be there
Yeah,
as well, so we
Okay.
could help represent
Yeah.
any questions that came up, from a technical standpoint.
I mean, I'm good probably until 10:30, 10:40, I just have to take off. So we can get that. So I don't think we get that. Okay.
I think that might be kind of an opposition potentially, we can talk offline about scheduling that. I appreciate that your time, and I know it's important, so
Yeah.
make sure that comes in.
And Wayne, you're gonna incorporate the feedback into the next draft?
Be glad to. Yeah, I've got some notes if there's anything specific. Do you want me to send it back out to you again for one last look before we forward it then? Okay, so go ahead. I'll try to send that out in the morning then.
So the recommendations for additional restrictions on as part of the conditional judgment. This language is not official, right? That the planning commission would actually write the language, reword all this, right? This is the box of what you're going to.
And actually, they would only.
Right, is that how that?
Yeah.
They're not gonna take this verbatim, these recommendations, that's.
There was also a
Conditions.
talk last night about when we were chatting, and I wanted to clarify, looking at them, but potentially, they were saying that they would present this without the recommendation, so they, there's opportunity for them to decide what's included and what's not, I guess.
Theoretically, they wouldn't be incorporating that language into the rezoning conditions. The applicant would have to craft the conditions based on.
It's the applicant.
Yeah.
Right.
Has to be voluntary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to come with that. Like, the city can't prescribe what the conditions are. We can suggest and recommend, but we can't.
Yeah, I guess my point is like, it's at the discretion of,
City will multiply and present it. And say, are you okay with this?
Good message, I'd say, yeah.
I don't know, to broad that. Settle.
So are you asking if are you requesting staff to potentially edit this?
Yeah, I was just some suggestion with the language like meant to manage stormwater runoff, rather than say meant to heat discharge control. Not managing this kind of, just massaging something to make it very specific.
Yeah.
Be glad to do that.
Yeah. Okay. and this goes to the commission, planning commission, someone will share it with the applicant at some point. I don't know what that process is with the applicant to receive this.
Well, I would expect it would be part of the agenda materials for the planning commission, which the applicant typically will attend those, so that would be available to them. And through that process.
Staff reports already.
The other thing to Josh's point too, this memo will travel to council as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think there's difference with they do have the discretion to set up the council. So it's not a sure thing. They could read it and decide that they would like a board. I'm assuming there's just a discretionary, so it's
I
not.
was surprised if they did listen.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
I just want to put that caveat out there. Just-
Yeah, the only new condition to be added on council.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we'll see another version. Thank you, Wayne, for taking a shot.
And word, the final word. I'm just making PDF.
Okay, all right, anything else? I mean, that's anything happening, anybody, anything? Just want to adjourn. Motion, we should adjourn. Second? All right, all in favor of adjourn? There we go. Meeting.